So welcome to my podcast. This is the Toxic Mom Recovery Podcast. And if you don't know me, I'm Catherine and I help women heal from their toxic moms. Now, the way I primarily do this is through the Toxic Mom Recovery Guide, which I will have linked in the comments below. But I wanted to start doing a longer form format and answering questions. So today we're going to be answering the question of what do you do when your parent doesn't respect your spouse, how to handle fat shaming, and when you feel like you're stuck having to take care of a parent who's sick. So once again, like these are things that I talk about a bit more in the Toxic Mom Recovery Guide, but so many things, there's so many nuances, right? And this is something I tell my clients, it's not just ever one issue when it comes to dealing with a toxic parent. It literally affects every single aspect of your life. So if you've never seen me before, a toxic parent, I classify a toxic parent as someone who is emotionally immature or narcissistic. And a lot of times I really believe those go hand in hand. They work together, where someone who might start out as emotionally immature, maybe they've never just really grew up for whatever reason. Usually that's due to some sort of trauma. Usually a lot of times people who just don't pursue healing, they don't pursue any personal growth. They think that they're just fine the way they are, and that's okay. But sometimes we all have room to grow. We have all these opportunities to heal and to grow and move forward and become like more healed and healthy versions of ourselves. So sometimes people who are emotionally immature, they can develop very easily these different traits that are narcissistic, where they're incredibly selfish. They're very self-centered. They have a hard time empathizing with others. And so that's what I mean when I say a toxic parent. This is someone who is self-centered, they're self-absorbed, and everything revolves around them, and they're really usually not that parenting figure in your life. You ended up being more of the parent for them. You maybe feel like you're the adult in the relationship, and that's just not true. Maybe it is, but it isn't. So first of all, when your parent doesn't respect your spouse, this is a big issue. And this is also a sign of toxic family dynamics, where the spouse, the person who is coming into the family, right? So it's not about, okay, you married someone and you're your own family now. This dynamic is the parent saying, oh, well, you came into our family. And so now that you're part of the family, but you're not really part of the family, they're still an outsider. They're someone who is somehow intruding on family traditions. And so this can show up in a lot of different ways. It can become very underhanded in the way that they're kind of excluding your spouse, or maybe they're straight up disrespecting them. And if you have an emotionally immature, toxic parent who is doing these things, then it is absolutely time to adjust the way that you're interacting with them. So this might look like you confronting them in the moment, saying, hey, don't be rude to my spouse. Don't say that kind of thing to them. Standing up for them in the moment. Or it can also look like just removing yourself from the situation and not being there as much. Because if they can't be respectful to their spouse, to your spouse, then they're really not being respectful to you. And they're disrespecting you and your choice, because when you get married, like it or not, like you and your partner, you are on the same team. You are one person, and you should be treated the same way. And so if your parent or other family members, like siblings or grandparents or anybody's like, oh, well, not them, that's definitely something that needs to be addressed early on. And for you and your partner, your spouse, to be on the same page on how you're going to handle it and how you're going to move forward. Because if you don't have kids already, it's just going to get worse when you have kids, because the grandkids are naturally part of the family. Oh, well, they're blood, they're our blood. And the other parent gets just like pushed further and further out. And that is not okay. That's not healthy behavior. Like, you and your spouse, you are a family. Your children are your kids and your family. And if your parents are healthy, loving people to be in your kids' life, then that's great. I mean, of course you would want to have a healthy relationship for your kids with their grandparents, but sadly that's not always the case. And I know that we're going to be talking about this more in the future. So I also wanted to talk, this has come up quite a few times, about fat shaming. So there are so many mothers, shockingly, horrifically, who actively shame their children. They name call them, they fat shame them, whatever it is. When your mom, and I have notes over here, so I'm referencing. So when your mom fat shames you, there are 3 important things to remember. Number 1, realize that it's actually nothing about you. It has everything to do with her own security. Number 2 is don't let her do it. If she starts up, then you say, Mom, stop it. And if she doesn't, then you end the conversation and you walk away. If you're on the phone, then you hang up the phone, or you say, Mom, I'm not talking to you about this. And if she can't stop, she goes, and stuff like, no. And if you hang up the phone on her because she won't listen, she won't stop going on and on, then it's time to not answer your phone for a while. Either put her on silent or block her calls for a little while, because nothing that she says after that is going to be any good. She's throwing a fit, she's spiraling, and you don't need to handle that. Number 3 is, remember that toxic and narcissistic people, it is all about control. She can make you think that there's something wrong with you, then she can manipulate you, and she can isolate you from other family members. I had a girl in my comments on TikTok the other day saying, you know, my mom told me that my family was always talking about me behind my back. And that might not have been true at all, but if the mom makes it seem like, oh, well, everyone else is talking bad about you, but I love you, even though you're a fatty, you know, like, then your mom is that like safe person, right? When actually she's being incredibly manipulative. And whether the family is actually saying that or not doesn't matter. What matters is that the mom is taking advantage of the situation, and she's trying to keep the daughter isolated and trying to keep her all to herself. So even in Rapunzel, you know, Entangled, Mother Gothel, she even fat shames Rapunzel. She's like, oh, getting kind of chubby. And it's another way to try to control, to manipulate, to say, you can't do anything without me. You can't even lose weight. You can't even look good without me, without my approval. And the truth is, you are beautiful and you are deserving of love and care, and shame never got anybody anywhere. So if your mom is tearing you down, then she's not being a mother. She's a bully. So important to start getting emotional distance, to start just kind of taking what she says with a grain of salt, to say, you know what? Actually, what she says isn't true. It's really about her. It's about how she feels about herself, and starting to get that distance from it where it doesn't hit you the same way. It doesn't hurt that much. It doesn't become this thing that you internalize and think about and like ruminate on, because you can just know like, oh, that's just how she feels about herself. That's what's going on in her head. And she's trying to make someone else miserable with her. You know, misery loves company, right? So that's exactly what's happening here. And number 3, the third question I wanted to address is when you feel like you're stuck taking care of a sick parent. I had someone comment today, and so I wanted to go ahead and just go a bit more in depth on it, because I asked her, she's like, oh, I have to go see my mom today. I see her every Wednesday. And I was like, do you have to, or are you choosing to? And she was like, oh, like I don't. And this happens so often, right? We get ourselves caught up in these things because that's what we think we're supposed to do, right? Oh, well, I have to do this. I need to do this. We have this language around these responsibilities that we take on. And when you kind of step back for a second and realize, wait, is this actually what I want to do, or is this what I feel like I should do? Because if you're doing something out of obligation because you feel like you should, then you're not really doing it from a place of love. And of course, there is such a thing as sacrificial love. If you feel called to care for your sick mother, then that is such a high calling. I know that because I did that for my mother-in-law when she was sick. And that was something I chose to do out of love. But there's a lot of people who are taking care of their sick parents out of obligation. Well, nobody else is going to do it, so I have to. Well, do you? Or are you choosing to do that? Because if you didn't choose to do that, then something else would pop up. There would be something else to take that space. And so whether that looks like your mom ending up in a nursing home or in some sort of care facility, whatever that looks like, I think for her, she said like, oh, well, my mom wants to die at home. Sometimes we don't always get what we want. And it isn't like, you know, once again, if you want to, if you genuinely have that desire, like, I want my mom to have the death that she wants, okay, great, then you do that. But if you feel stuck and you feel trapped, then there's something going on internally. You have some belief system where you're like, oh, well, I have to do this. Well, do you? And really, and not to be like a snarky, like, you know, questioning, but really like we get ourselves stuck in these things because we assume that it's true. Well, of course I have to. Well, why? Oh, well, because of this and this. Okay. So what happens if you don't? And really like examining it and unraveling this stuff. This is where I talk about mindfulness a lot in the Toxic Mom Recovery Guide, and how you can start to tune into what's going on inside of you and start unraveling these negative thoughts and these negative beliefs that are keeping you stuck. Because when you can start to see it for what it is, it's once again, it's that emotional distance, right? Where it's not your identity, it's not consuming you, and you're able to say, wait a second, this is actually something that I can choose. This is something I can adjust and do a bit differently. With everything that I talk about, it is so open for your interpretation and for your version of it. There are some things that are like, yeah, universal, like, hey, if someone's abusing you, like, stop going around, you know, like, get distance from them. And sometimes with parents, it can be tricky because it's so subtle, right? If you were to tell somebody, oh, well, my mom said this, can you believe it? And they'd be like, so what? And it's because it's so unique to you and your situation, to your trauma, to how you were raised, that it hits you in that way where it opens up all of these wounds and all these memories. So it's okay if people don't understand where you're coming from or what you're going through, but it is so important to start examining these things, to start saying, okay, well, do I really believe this? Is this really what's best for me? And once again, like, if you feel called, go for it. Enjoy, have fun. But if you don't, then say, okay, so what can I do instead? How can I make this look different? Is there a time limit that I can put on it? Does it need to be every other week instead of every single week? There are so many minor adjustments and things that you can do so that you can enjoy your life. Because that's really the whole point. I feel like if you can heal so that you can enjoy your life, that's what I say. Like, that's what I really like. Like, that's the reason why I make content and do all this stuff, because when I healed and I was able to release and resolve so much of the pain and the wounding from my own parents, I was able to start enjoying my life again. And I was able to be like, oh, okay, well, now I want to build something. Now I want to create and dream and do these different things. And I talk to so many people who feel so stuck because of the way that they've built up their lives, and whether they feel like they had a choice or not. Like, we always have a choice on what we're going to do every single moment of the day. So if you want to start like shifting that or becoming more aware even of your like internal dialogue, I highly recommend you get the Toxic Mom Recovery Guide. Like I said, I'll link it in the comments, or if you follow me on TikTok or Instagram, it's at Catherine the Grace. And you can find, I have so many videos. I've been making videos for like the last 2 years now. So tons and tons of videos, tons of resources to help you start resolving this stuff so you can heal and move forward and create a life that you really enjoy. So thank you so much. If you have other questions, leave them in the comments, and yeah, we'll be doing this every week, and I'll get to it next time. So talk to you guys later.